Cancer. Welcome back to Starspoken Oracle. This is episode 9 of your weekly reading, and today we are reading for Cancer, for the week of July 1st through July 7th, 2026. This is the week you stop softening the truth to keep the peace, and say the honest thing with a clear head instead of a flooded heart. Every week I shuffle the deck for all 12 signs and let the cards fall where they need to, but this week's sky is doing more of the talking than usual. Two fast-moving planets are about to shake things loose right in the middle of a slower, more introspective retrograde season, and that tension between speed and patience shows up in your card whether you notice it right away or not. Before we get to your card, let's talk about what the sky is actually doing this week, because it touches every single sign, and it shapes exactly how your card wants to be read. The cosmic weather. This week's sky is anything but quiet. Mercury is retrograde in Cancer, a shift that began June 29th and holds through July 23rd, which means communication, travel, and old business all move a little slower, a little more prone to mix-ups, and a lot more likely to circle back to unfinished conversations from the past. Do not panic about the delays. Retrograde season is not punishment. It is a review period, and if you use it that way instead of fighting it, this can be one of the more productive stretches of your year. Then, on July 4th, two things happen within hours of each other. Mars forms an exact, volatile conjunction with Uranus at 3 degrees of Gemini, a combustible pairing of raw drive and sudden disruption that has been building since late June and finally snaps into focus. Expect the unexpected this week, sudden changes of plan, flashes of insight, or a jolt of energy that moves faster than your ability to plan for it. On the same day, Venus glides into confident, warm-hearted Leo, softening the sharper edges of the week with a dose of romance, creativity, and self-assurance. So the week has two moods running at once: Mercury retrograde asking you to slow down, review, and finish what you started, while Mars, Uranus, and Venus in Leo push you towards sudden action and bold self-expression. The trick is not choosing one over the other, it is knowing which parts of your life need the pause, and which parts need the leap. Every reading this week, for every sign, is really a variation on that same question: where in your life is patience the answer, and where is boldness overdue? This is episode 9 of Starspoken Oracle, which means we are now solidly past the midpoint of the year and sliding into the back half of summer, a natural point for stock-taking even without a retrograde underlining it. Whatever you started back in January has had 6 months to prove itself. This week's mixed signals of pause and leap are, in a sense, the sky asking you to check in on exactly that. For you, Cancer, both the Sun and retrograde Mercury are moving through your own sign right now, a rare double dose of home turf energy that makes everything feel closer to the surface than usual. Your card. Now, Cancer, let's turn the card. I shuffled the deck thinking about your week, about the energy the stars are handing you, and about what you need to hear rather than what might be comfortable to hear. The card that came up for you this week is Queen of Swords. Take a breath with that one, Cancer. Let's talk about what it actually means for you right now, and why the timing of this particular card, in this particular week, is not a coincidence. What it means. The Queen of Swords sits upright on her throne, sword raised, gaze level and unclouded. She has felt everything and decided not to let feeling override clarity. This is an unusual card for tender, feeling first Cancer, and that is exactly why it matters this week. With the Sun and a retrograde Mercury both moving through your sign right now, this is a rare stretch of double Cancer weather. Everything feels more, but it needs to be said with more clarity, not less. It is unusual to see the Queen of Swords paired with a water sign, and that is exactly the point. This week is not asking you to feel less, only to let clarity lead the feeling instead of the other way around. That is a subtle but important difference for you, Cancer, and one worth sitting with. Here's something worth watching for as the week unfolds, Cancer. You might notice this as a moment where you almost soften a text message 3 times before sending it. Send the second draft, not the third. The first honest instinct is usually closer to right than the version you polish into vagueness. The areas of your life. Let's walk through where this lands, Cancer. In love and relationships. In love, the pull is to protect a partner's feelings by hiding your own. Do not say the honest, hard thing this week, gently but plainly. A boundary stated with warmth is not coldness, Cancer, even though it will feel that way as the words leave your mouth. Single Cancer, clarity about what you actually want is more attractive right now than accommodation. A conversation you have postponed to avoid conflict is more likely to go well than you expect if you lead with one clear, direct sentence rather than a long emotional preamble. In work and career. At work, confusion or office politics need a clear-headed decision rather than another round of reading the room. You already know the answer. Say it plainly, in fewer words than you are tempted to use. If a colleague or team seems confused about your intentions, a short, direct clarification will resolve more than a longer explanation would. Precision is kinder than you think right now. In money and resources. Financially, this is a week for clear-eyed budgeting rather than emotional spending or emotional avoidance. Look at the number you have been avoiding. It is more manageable than the anxiety about it. This is a good week to make a clear, unemotional decision about a recurring expense or financial habit that has been quietly draining you for longer than you would like to admit. And in health and energy. Emotionally, journaling or naming a feeling out loud will do more for you this week than trying to simply feel your way through the retrograde fog. Clarity is the medicine, not distraction. Try writing down exactly what you feel before you speak it out loud this week. The practice of naming it first tends to sharpen it into something you can actually say clearly. And one more area worth naming this week, your own growth. Your growth edge is separating the feeling from the message. You can feel everything fully and still deliver the truth in one clean sentence. Practicing that this week will serve you long after the retrograde season ends. Your guidance for the week. Before the practical advice, a word on timing, Cancer, because this week's sky moves in a specific shape. With the Sun still moving through your sign all week and Mercury retrograde alongside it, the entire week runs a little more emotionally loud than usual. Notice that rather than fighting it. The clearest window for an honest conversation is midweek, once the initial intensity around July 4th's Mars-Uranus peak has settled slightly. So what do you actually do with all of this? led with truth wrapped in warmth. You do not have to choose between kind and honest this week, Cancer, but if you must pick one, pick honest. Cancer, with the Sun and Mercury both moving through your sign, this week is louder on the inside than it looks from the outside. Let the Queen's clarity be your anchor through it. If you take one thing from this reading into your week, Cancer, let it be that. Not as a rule to follow perfectly, but as a direction to lean toward when you are not sure which way to turn. Come back to your card if the week gets confusing. Queen of Swords is simpler advice than it looks at first glance. Closing. Before you go, Cancer, here is a one-line journal prompt to sit with this week if you want to take this reading further than just listening. Where this week am I being asked to slow down, and where am I being asked to leap? Write down the first honest answer that comes to mind, not the answer that sounds best, just the one that is true. Cancer, here's your affirmation for the week of July 1st to 7th. Say it with me, once, like you mean it. I speak my truth clearly, even when my heart is full. Carry that with you as you move through this week's Queen of Swords. That is your reading for this week. If this landed for you, subscribe so you do not miss episode 10. It drops next Wednesday, with a brand new card for every sign. And if this week's reading was helpful, share it with the Cancer in your life who needs to hear it too. The stars have spoken, Cancer. Until next week.